Well, folks, thanks so much for coming to the New Orleans Jazz Museum. I'm Christian Bold, and on behalf of the staff, we welcome you. Uh, it's really great that we can provide these local shows for you guys. We love to have musicians who come from the city, or at least work actively in the city. And we got a really great band coming up from a woman who's really dedicated herself to the craft, really dedicated herself to this scene, keeps a good eye in the past, and an eye towards the future as well musically. So we're really excited to have her, and I hope they're primed to come on out here. We got Amina Scott and her band, y'all. Give them a hand.
Hello, everyone. How are you guys doing? Thank you for coming out. Hey. I just want to talk a little bit about this specific gig and project, why we're playing the tunes that we're playing. So I'm going to start with a little story. Can I get some background music? Thank you. So the year's 2019, and I'm about to graduate from grad school at Florida State University. And for one of my final exam paper things that I had to write, one of my professors gave me the topic to create a timeline of female bass players from 1940 to the present, so until 2019. And I was like, at first I was like, ugh, men, of course. You know, but then I was like running through the Rolodex. I was like, okay, there's Esperanza and I couldn't, like, it was so hard trying to find someone before like 1980 or so, which one is really crazy, right? And so then I ended up finishing the paper somehow, which by the way was probably the hardest paper I'd ever written because the research was so tough. And then I ended up having to defend it, as we do. And so in my defense, the first thing they asked me about it was, so what did you gain from writing it? Like, what did you learn? And I was like, hold my beer, because I've learned a lot. Not just about the bass players, one of which I wrote about. We're going to play one of her tunes today. But I learned that we don't talk about women enough in this music. We don't play their tunes enough in this music. We don't celebrate them like with their own careers. Sometimes we attach their careers to those of their husbands who might be great musicians or, you know, surrounding musicians. So we don't talk about us enough. So my goal today is to highlight some people that I personally know, and I'll tell their stories or how my story relates to them when we get to their tunes, but highlight a couple of women who have meant a lot to me, who I look up to in my journey. And you're gonna hear a little bit about who I am, how I fit into this whole idea of music. And yeah, so we're gonna get started with a tune written by one of the first bass players to really inspire me. Her name's Esperanza Spalding. It's actually not her tune, but she made this arrangement pretty famous, so we're gonna play it for y'all. Let's see if you guys can guess what song this is. Question is, am I ready? We shall see about this. Thank you. That was Esperanza Spalding's arrangement of Body and Soul. And I wanted to start with that because when I first started playing bass, that was the first album that my dad bought me because he was so excited that I was playing bass. And just a funny story, I started on electric bass playing like Stevie Wonder songs and stuff with like more repetitive bass lines. And so he was like, you gotta learn giant steps because he played saxophone. And I was like, okay. So, I went on Livewire or FrostWire, one of them at the time, and I downloaded it. And I was like, how am I supposed to learn this? Like, he keeps changing the notes all the time. Little did I know, that's what you're supposed to do. But yeah, so she was like she was like the first woman that I saw that, kind of looked like me that was doing what I wanted to do. So, and also a lot of people ask me if I look up to her. So now everyone in here, y'all could say that I do, and then no one ever has to ask me that question again. So we're gonna continue on with a tune of mine that was also inspired by another woman who plays the bass extremely well. The backstory behind this song, which I don't think any of y'all know, is that I was really going through it in grad school. Like, it was really hard. And so I was in the practice room one day, and I was sounding terrible. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to see if I could come up with something that, Linda Mahon O would kind of play. I don't know. Or she might play. She probably will never play this, but she might. But so the bass line was inspired by her, and then it turned into a song, and that song is entitled Persistence. And I hope you guys enjoy it. Are the monitors on? They're on? What you need, Peter? Can we get piano and bass in the drum monitor? And a little trumpet in mine, thank you. I put some of my tunes in the book, so I want to make sure I get to the other people's tunes that I want to honor today. But we'll play this next one for you guys. It's fairly new, so we might as well. No one's heard it. We heard it for the first time today when we rehearsed it. So be gentle. Be very gentle. So I guess during I guess this is the fake pandemic we're in. We were in the real pandemic in 2020. My goal was to write something every single day, like a tune or whatever every single day. So this one doesn't have a title. Right now it's called Rona 02, because it was the second one I wrote. So if you guys hear a title or if a word just like sparks you when you hear this, please let me know, because I'm kind of tired of seeing Rona 02 on this paper. I'm losing track of which one is which. So, so anyway, here is Rona 02, brand new tune, world premiere, yay. that was probably for you, but also for us. Yeah, so if anyone has a title, come talk to me after, because I have no idea. Let's do that one. Let's do the American Brothers. No idea? Yeah. Okay, so we're going to give Steve a little bit of a break. That's Steve Lands, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, on the trumpet. On the piano to my right is the wonderful, the amazing, one of my best buddies, Oscar Rossignoli. And to my left, another friend of mine, an amazing drummer. His name is Peter Varnado on the drums. All right, so this next tune that we're gonna do is a tune that is written by a wonderful bassist who I believe she's residing outside of Chicago, and I hope she's watching if she is. Hi, Marlene. Her name is Marlene Rosenberg, and I wrote about her for the comp exam that I told you guys about earlier. And just a quick tidbit as far as how we met. So I follow an amazing pianist. Her name is Rennie Rosnes. Some of y'all might know her. Some of y'all might not. If you don't, please go check her out. She's amazing. She plays in a group called Artemis. So if anyone's like, where are the women? Artemis. But she posted this picture of her back in I want to say the 80s or the 70s maybe, probably one of those decades. And she was like, this is us off the bandstand with Joe. And I was like, wait, Joe who? And I look in the comments and she's talking about Joe Henderson. And I was like, wait a minute. So this is part of the problem. Y'all mean to tell me that Joe Henderson had a band full of all women in the rhythm section and nobody said a word to me? Exactly, see? And they recorded one album together, and the album is very hard to find, but it's a live recording. But anyway, so I do some Facebook digging, and in the picture was drummer Sylvia Cuenca, was playing drums, and the bass player was Marlene Rosenberg. So I find her on Facebook. I Google search her because I was obsessed at this moment, and I found out she teaches in Illinois, like right by Chicago. And that Thanksgiving, I was gonna go to Chicago to visit my family. So of course I email her and I tell everybody about her. And we ended up meeting in person, had a great lesson, and she's been kind of in my life ever since then. And so when I told her my idea for the gig, I was like, can you send me a couple of tunes? Like specifically this one, because there's a lot of bass in this song. And she was like, yes, of course. So that is my story with Marlene, the composer of this next tune. She's wonderful. This is on an album, I believe it's called MLK Convergence. And she's played with everybody. I mentioned Joe Henderson, but also Roy Hargrove, also Bobby Watson. I was gonna say Hutcherson, Bobby Watson. She might have also played with Bobby Hutcherson too. Her first big gig was with Ed Thigpen, who you guys might know if you listen to the Oscar Peterson trio. He's on Night Train and a bunch of other Oscar Peterson albums. But yeah, I digress. So this next tune is off that album. It's called American Violet, and this is by the great bass player Marlene Rosenberg. I hope you guys enjoy. That was Marlene Rosenberg's tune, American Violet. Go check that album out, y'all. It's really amazing. We're going to invite Steve Lands back up. And we're going to, you can clap for Steve. He sounds okay. You know, he sounds pretty good. So we're going to play another tune by a big sister of mine. We play together with Dee Dee Bridgewater when we go on the road. But the story how we met, I'm going to try and get to the point. So 2015, 2014, around that area, I was in college and I was like kind of not in the best headspace. I was feeling really terrible about my playing and all of that stuff that as artists we go through occasionally. And I read in PR, and there's an article that was about a record company, and I'm forgetting the record company's name, but it included a woman named Shirzat Tenen, who's a drummer, Mimi Jones, who's an amazing bass player, and also Camille Thurman. And I was like, whoa. Like, Esperanza is huge, but like on, you know, I was like, there's more. There's more of us. So I got really excited, and I really wanted to meet them. Fast forward to 2019, I was a part of Dee Dee Bridgewater's inaugural program for the Woodshed Network, which is for young women in jazz. And it's about mentorship and all of that stuff that comes with that. And lo and behold, who's doing the health and wellness segment is Shirzat Tenen. And when I tell y'all I was so excited, I had to like truly hide it. Because I had been trying to meet her and like figure out how I could do that for years, you know, about 4 or 5 years now. So fast forward again to last year, Dee Dee Bridgewater was playing with an all-woman big band in Detroit for the Jazz Festival, which I was playing bass in. And Shirzat was the drummer. Who else shows up to be on the gig is Camille Thurman. And I'm like, wow, this is so awesome. I get to meet like at least 2 of the people that, you know, were inspiring me from afar, like in one place, and I get to play with both of them. Still need to meet Mimi, though. It's always bass players who I'm like, we'll never play a gig together, but I want to meet her someday. So I hit Shirzat up, and I was like, can you bestow upon us this tune? Because it's one of my favorites off of her first record. I think it's her first record. And she was like, of course. So this tune that we're about to play with y'all, or play for you guys, is called Unsissy. And she told me it was about her mother and how growing up people, and I think she would also call her Sissy, Aunt Sissy. And so it's about her mother, and I hope we do this song justice. This is called Unsissy by Shirzat Tenen. trumpet, Steve Land. On the piano, Oscar Rosignoli. And on the drums, Peter Barnado. And my name's Amina Scott on the bass. Thank you for coming out today. I think I'm being interviewed after this, but I hope after this performance we can all vow to talk more about women in jazz. We feel like we could go out and search for the information because we're all out here. And I hope you guys enjoyed the music, the performance, and listen to right here. Thank you all so much. Thank you all so much. So thank you. Please stick around. I'm going to answer some questions. So, yeah, hang out for a second as we strike the stage.
Hey, y'all, welcome to New Orleans Jazz Museum and New Orleans Jazz Museum website and Facebook page and whatever else we are doing this on. YouTube channel, yeah. My name is David Cunion. This is Amina Scott. We're going to sit here and talk today about what's it feel like to be a woman in jazz? No. Promised I wouldn't ask that.
The age-old question.
I wanted to ask you first because you may have told the story, but I hadn't heard it, and maybe they haven't. How did you end up playing bass of all instruments?
Okay, I'm gonna try and be very concise here. I like to talk a lot.
It's okay. It's your interview. You can talk all you would like.
Well, I started playing piano when I was 5. My grandma had a piano in her house, and so she taught me. And then I went on to take piano lessons. So started on piano, and then we also had a flute. My mom used to play flute. And when I got to elementary school, we started band, and so I played flute in the band. But then I stopped practicing. It's usually
did you not like the flute? I mean, obviously not. If you stop practicing,
it was all right.
Okay.
It's not for me. I've heard other people play it, and it's beautiful, but not when I play it. And so then when I was about 12, I wanted to be in a rock band, and so I was like, oh, I should learn one of these instruments. My mom said, heck no to the drums immediately. That was what I gravitated towards first. She was like, no. And then
not having that in my house.
And then I wanted to play guitar, but that was way too hard. And I was like, bass has less strings. I'll just play that. And it ended up being a little harder, so I don't know. But then I started playing electric bass, and then eventually played upright in jazz band. And then, yeah, that's pretty much the story, actually.
Now, did you ever play in rock bands, or did you immediately gravitate to jazz?
No, I never played in my rock band that I wanted to play in. Although sometimes when we get together, it really does feel like that. Like on some of these tunes, I was like, oh, we are going hard right now. But never got the rock band experience, you know? It was kind of just this. I started playing in this band in Oakland that was run out of a library, public library, in Emeryville, if there's anyone from the Bay. Shout out to Emeryville. Ooh, we got one. Because no one knows where that is. But yeah, we started playing out there, and then we were doing gigs around town, and then I eventually got a actual band together in high school, but it was not rock. It was closer to this.
Closer to this was a jazz kind of thing.
Yeah.
Not to
we were really into RH Factor, so there you go. That's what it was.
That good taste, you know. Yeah. How did you end up in New Orleans?
I went to Loyola.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah.
Wolfpack. But that's actually it though. I wanted there's a story to that too. 2011 I came down here on a service trip with my high school that you had to apply to go. So it was like a whole like application process. So I got in, and one night they let us loose on Bourbon Street, and we're all like 16.
Horace.
So
changed your life.
Well, boy, did it. But you know what's funny? So I walked past, I think it was the Fat Cat, and they were playing a song that I knew. And every time I find myself on Bourbon Street and I'm in front of Fat Cat, I'm like, wow, this is kind of where it started. I was like, oh, I could actually do this. Like, I know that song. I feel confident, but I wasn't 21, so I couldn't even get in. But the vibe was like really nice. And so that was when I was like, all right, I got to figure out a way to get down here somehow. Like I have to figure it out. And at the time I was like, well, there's so many colleges around. I applied to Xavier, Dillard, obviously Loyola, and Southern, even though I didn't know how far Baton Rouge was at the time. I applied to Southern. And I got into all of them, and the thing that was appealing about Loyola to my mom was that she basically said, and she's gonna say that she didn't say this, but this is what I heard. If you major in something like music business, then you could go, and like I'll be cool with it. She didn't want me to major in just music, so I majored in music business. And yeah, that's how I ended up in New Orleans at Loyola.
And you've stuck around.
I have stuck around. Yes.
Are there certain musicians that you have kind of patterned your playing on, whether locally or nationally?
Yeah. I'll start with the nationally. I would say my favorite living bass player right now, since I was in high school, has always been Derek Hodge. on upright and definitely on electric, but a lot of people don't know that he's really bad on upright.
He's a bad mamma jamma.
Yeah, and his writing is just everything that I want. You know, like I want that. Of course, I mentioned Esperanza earlier. Also going back.
That's Esperanza Spalding.
Esperanza Spalding.
For those of you who are not on the one name basis where they're like we are.
Yeah, we know her.
Yeah.
Also, definitely Ray Brown. And Christian McBride. Although I think I sound very different from Christian, but I like his playing a lot. Ron Carter, for sure, has been the most like recent person I've been trying to figure out. And Paul Chambers, you can't really leave him out of, like, if you play upright bass, you have probably dealt with Ray Brown and Paul Chambers and probably Oscar Pettiford as well. So all of those people. And then I guess locally, one of the first bass players that I really saw that was like so free on the instrument, still is too, is James Singleton. I love James's playing. Like, that man could do anything.
Yeah.
On any gig, most diverse bass player that I've ever heard. Same with Chris Severin as well. Gosh, the local part's really hard because there's a lot of people that come to mind as well. I really love Max Moran. And I've always looked up to Max and Jason Weaver because they were always around. I mean, Jason's in Belgium now, but he was always around. And I remember when we were in the same band, we used to play at Prime Example every Wednesday. And Jesse McBride, who was the band leader at the time, he had us both on the gig. So Jason would play like a tune like So What? And he'd do a substitution. And I'd write it down on my phone. And I'd be like, next time I play this song, I'm going to do that same thing. So definitely, you know, Jason Weaver, Max Moran, Chris Severin, James Singleton. There's just so many great bass players here. Peter Harris is another person who comes to mind. And also, quiet as it's kept, Nicholas Payton's bass playing is pretty fire. If you ever get a chance to hear it.
Not often you get to.
It's very magical.
But
if you know, you know.
Yeah.
If you know, you know.
Yeah. I have had several times over the years, and before Nick started, you know, playing out in bass or piano, I remember one time walking into, it was like the Hard Rock on Iberville and Bourbon one night. And there's, you know, Nick and the band, like, playing piano, playing beautiful piano. And I'm going,
oh, his piano.
I had no idea. 15 years ago, I'm like, I had no idea he did that. And then I find out he does that. And, you know, Nick Payton.
And drums.
And drums. Yeah.
I've experienced him playing drums when I'm playing bass. It is quite something.
It's really something.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you also how, I mean, obviously it's Women's History Month and all that, but how did you get the idea to do a program like this featuring female composers?
It was inspired partly by the story that I told at the beginning about, you know, having the realization that my entire upbringing in this music did not really involve women ever. I had my first bass teacher who was a woman in grad school my last year when I decided to also study classical bass. I had studied classical bass before that, but I wanted to get back into it. And her name's Melanie Punter, who also was like best friends with Max Roach's daughter in New York, which is like crazy. So she understood where I was coming from, and like she was, you know, helping me with like playing music, which was awesome. It wasn't really ever a bass lesson. It was always about playing music. So, but that also was like crazy to me. Like I never studied bass with a woman before. No one's ever been like, hey, do you know so-and-so? Even if there wasn't a bass player, like, hey, do you know who Joanne Brackeen is? Who Steve and I actually got to play with. No one put me on Joanne Brackeen until like I got on her like way later, you know? Even like Rennie Rosnes, who I mentioned, like she's on a ton of albums. And it's like, why hasn't anyone directed me towards her? I think I had one moment in undergrad with the director of the program who's there now, Gordon Towell. We actually had a talk about this, and he put me on a lot of more like younger people at the time, like Grace Kelly. I think her name's Grace Kelly. I feel like I just said her name wrong. She plays alto.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it is.
Am I right?
I want to say it is Grace Kelly.
I always think of Grace Kelly like the, you know.
The movie star.
Yeah. But her and like a couple, Nikki Perot as well. So he kind of opened me up a little bit, but I was just really shocked that by that point I was 21 years old, you know? So
You would think you would have come across
a lot of these people sooner, especially
they're
like the Joanne Brackeen thing really kind of took me aback because as far as I know, she's the only woman to ever play in Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. And she took somebody's gig, but she won't say who. So it's like, that's kind of gangster to me. And I didn't know about that until, we played the gig. So that, and the other crazy thing too is that Beyonce had also had her all-woman band, which I think kind of harkens back to Prince's band. But then I've seen Prince, and he didn't have an all-woman band. I knew about Sheila E. and like a couple other people, but I didn't really know,
Beyonce having an all-women band was a big deal when she did it. I mean, it was, everyone kind of went, you can, of course you could do that, but who would think to,
Yeah, exactly. So, but the fact that she was very deliberate about it. And, like when I go out with Dee Dee, like I mentioned, me and Shirzette play with her, but her musical director and pianist is Carmen Staff. So we're all rolling like all women, like, and people are just as shocked in 2022.
It's bizarre.
I know.
I don't.
And I also realized, like, we don't like I had to check myself because I thought about it and I was like, wow, I never thought to include some of their tunes, like some of our tunes on the sets. So it's also checking myself. So now we didn't get to it today because of time, but typically I like to end with a Jerry Allen song. And usually it's Unconditional Love, but time restraints and all that. So I started doing that like basically when I moved back, and now that I'm teaching, I also find that I kind of have to be part of the change that I want to see. So now my combos are playing Jerry Allen songs. They're playing some of the same stuff we just played. Now I'm putting my bass players on Marlene Rosenberg. I had Marlene come and do a master class back when we were on Zoom, just so like people could meet her and see her, and know about her. And I realized I don't think it's any malice, because I don't think any of my teachers are bad people. I don't think they're sexist. Things might slip, but I think it's because we don't think about it.
We don't even
think about it.
You don't even begin to
It's like, oh, this is the tradition. This is how it goes. So this is how it's always been. So if it's not broken, why not fix it? And technically it's not. I don't think it's, well, there's parts of it that are pretty broken. But, you're not thinking about it as much when we're teaching. So whenever I see a pianist and I'm like, have you heard of Joanne Brackeen? Typically the answer is no. So I'm like, go check out this record. Go check this out. I'll find them in the hallway and be like, yo, have you listened to the record? So that's kind of how I'm trying to be that kind of change. Slowly but surely. We'll get there.
Slow but sure, as we say,
Yeah.
As the Zen master says, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with, one woman composer.
Exactly. And also, like, I haven't played some of these tunes before, like, with the band. So, like, they sent it to me, and then I was practicing them by myself. But, like, some of these tunes were also new to me, too. Just to put that out there.
When you were starting this project, is there anything that kind of surprised you or that you learned that you didn't know before or didn't expect?
I wasn't expecting these to be as hard because they don't sound like they're hard, but they are very difficult. It was a lot of bass stuff, which I deliberately did because I was like, oh, it's a lot of bass lines, like it's cool, but it's really intricate. I mean, music is tricky. I don't know if I learned much. Well, actually, that's a lie. I learned something every day, but I'm probably more familiar with these tunes than the band was because I've listened to the records a lot. Like, I've listened to Shirzette's record since 2014. And then Marlene's record came out, I want to say like 2019, 2020. So it's been in my ears a lot. I guess I'm learning like the ins and outs of the tunes. And like I said, how complicated all of that was. So, deceptively simple. I think it's green now. I think you're good. Would you like? They can hear you.
The internet can't hear you.
Oh, the internet. No. Technical difficulties. Yeah, Shirazette's name is Shirazettee. Yes. And she's an awesome drummer. Obviously a great composer, but her and Marlene are some of the best people too. They are awesome people.
I have one more question for you, and that is, do you have any advice for, women who are the next generation coming up in the jazz world or the music world in general on, how to do it, how not to do it, who to look out for, how to, other composers or stuff like that?
I think there's 3 things I could think of. One is find yourself a community that really supports you. The community doesn't have to be all women, obviously, in music. Like, you're going to have men involved. As you could tell, my entire band was men and me, because I didn't realize that this month was Women's History Month. But
in 2 weeks, it'll be all women. We understand.
Yeah, exactly. But, I wouldn't have hired the band that I hired if I didn't trust them and if I felt like they didn't respect me and that they didn't want to lift me up. You know what I mean? You want to have people in your circle who are like that, regardless of their gender, especially if they're men. But, you want to have a community that supports you. The other thing I could say that's kind of concise is, keep going, keep playing, don't stop playing. It's going to be hard at times. You're going to feel like you're really alone, but there is when I was coming up, I didn't feel like there was anyone who did what I did. So now, teaching at Loyola, and you would know there's so many more women in these programs. There's so many young ladies that are at these camps that are playing their butts off and that are sounding fantastic. So that's really inspiring for me to see, because at a time where there was not a lot, now there's so many, So keep playing and know that, there's people out here that got your back whether you know them or not. And be fearless. Don't let anybody stop you from doing what you want to do. And I think with those 3 things, at least those 3 things helped me a lot. So.
Do you have any questions for Amina while we're sitting around?
Yes.
What advice do you have for young musicians trying to groove together or improvise with their band members? Just other people can hear.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know. I know that one thing that Steve and I have done, just us together, but also, I think at some point the 3 of them too, and, when Jason was here, they would invite me to, I guess it would be at Steve's house, and they would shed. They would just practice. And they would do things that were very hard, and they would set limitations on what they could do. So, I know one thing that Steve loves to do is, he'll take a song, he'll take a F blues, right? But when you improvise over an F blues, you can't play the note F, which is, see, you laughing because it's hard. It sounds like it would be easy, but it is not. But the challenge is you can't play that note, but you also have to come up with something that's kind of melodic and that still sounds good with avoiding the tonic, right? So 1, practicing with limitations. 2, practicing with limitations with other people. I feel like the reason why, at least the trio, me, Oscar, and Peter, we sound pretty good is because we've literally done so many gigs together at this point. It started off as Oscar's trio, then it became my trio, and then it became Oscar's trio again, depending on whose name is on the poster. But the more you call the same people and play together, the tighter the band is going to be. And then Steve, we all know Steve. Also, we all are friends. We all hang out together. So, when you hang out with people, naturally stuff is going to bounce off and all that. So, if you like each other and you're friends, that's a great start. Then, if your friends inspire you, they they uplift you, then get together every once in a while and play together. Then when you're playing a tune, set some limitations on what you can and cannot do over that tune. Say you can't, whatever key you're in, if you're in the key of D, don't play the note D when you solo. There's a bunch of other things I could get into. That's a whole can of worms. But that's a great start, I think. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Seems like your career is just skyrocketing. What would be like a bucket list for you in the world of jazz? Something that would just make it for you.
What is a bucket list for you in the world of jazz?
Oh, wow. Okay. I guess a bucket list thing. I would love to be on a bill, but the bill is one of those like major jazz festivals in Europe, like Umbria. I think that's in Europe. I'm not.
Umbria's in
Italy,
Europe, yeah.
right? It's in Italy.
Yeah.
See, I don't even know where half of these are. Or like Tokyo or something. Because my goal has always been to travel and play music. So if I could do that, but like on such a big scale that I could feel like, yeah, okay, I've done it. I don't need to do it again. I probably will though. But that's definitely one thing I would love to do.
All right. Everybody give it up for Amina Scott.
Thank y'all.
She will be
Right.
back in 2 weeks?
Next week.
Next week, okay. So
Yes.
it's 2 weeks and then, okay. So she'll be back next week doing a similar program? You're gonna do
Probably
this?
similar. I might switch out some of these tunes, but definitely
Yeah.
similar, yeah.
So check it out, y'all, and thanks for coming.
Thank y'all.